Good afternoon, everyone. You are live with King Sigma on this November 9th fall afternoon. I hope everyone is doing well. I appreciate you all taking an hour or so out of your day to join me in this needed discussion. But before we get started on the topic of the third entry in the Surviving Bottom Shelf Brad series, this will be case number 3, Joe Morrissey, convicted pedophile, elected to Virginia Senate. So I just wanted to share some news from the preceding week that I think that you can use. So I definitely think this is some news that you can use. So this week we saw that out in the state of Kentucky, we had the first Black attorney general elected, and the politician's name is Daniel Cameron, a 33-year-old millennial, former football player at the University of Louisville. And I thought that that election result, it was very, very telling of what's coming in the near future in regards to the shift of many Black men away from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party or third parties, or probably a very permanent kind of protest voter. So I think the next decade will be defined more than anything politically by the shift of Black American men and some Black American women away from the Democratic Party. And this election of a millennial as the first Attorney General Black American in the history of that state is telling. So keep an eye on the Attorney General for the state of Kentucky. That shows a shift that actually was representative of the numbers that we've looked at before from the 2016 election, when somewhere between 12 and 16% of Black men bolted the Democratic Party for the Republican Party. But as I've said before on these streams, people are underestimating the third party vote among your Black men under 45. 7% of Black men overall voted for third party candidates. And we also had a lot of Black men that stayed home, but that 7% that voted for third party was more interesting than anything to me, because when you look at those through a filter of age, Black men under 30 especially were more likely to vote for a third party than those Black men over 50. So keep an eye on that third party vote next year. In business news and political news, Michael Bloomberg, the former three-term mayor of New York City, has entered the Democratic presidential nomination race, and he has gotten his name on a ballot in Alabama before their deadline. Michael Bloomberg is the 8th richest man on the planet. He's actually the 8th richest person on the planet. Yeah, the 8th richest person on the planet right now. He is the founder of Bloomberg News, and he was a former mayor of New York City. But what really stands out about Michael Bloomberg that makes him kind of a dark horse in this nomination primary race is the fact that Michael Bloomberg was a former Democrat. He was a former Republican. Then he ran as an independent, and now he's running as a Democrat again. So I find him to be a very intriguing entry into the race. We'll see what happens. I'm pretty much at this point still believe that because of the nature of the symbolic power of 2019, 2022 feminists, and especially like the fourth wave, fifth wave feminists, in terms of the 100-year anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment, I still believe that the Democratic Party, being the party of misandry and feminism, want to make sure that it's a female candidate. They don't even care if they win, because if they were trying to actually win this 2020, they would not be turning their backs on American men, specifically Black men, who they really do need to vote in order to beat Donald Trump in 2020. So for me, I think it's one of those, cut off your nose to spite your face type situations where they're willing to sacrifice the American male voters that have, traditionally voted for Democrats in exchange just for this idea of putting a woman in there. So we'll see what happens with Michael Bloomberg. As I said on a panel last night, it'll be a question of, is Michael Bloomberg just another Al Franken male feminist that will be discarded by the Democratic Party the way that they discarded a supposed male ally with Al Franken? Or will he take more of a business approach to it and still stand strong in his masculinity and treat the voters with respect regardless of gender and not fall into misandry? But to me, I just don't see how a candidate running for the Democratic Party in 2019 can claim to be a Democrat and not fall in line with the misandry. So we'll see. In sports news, when I looked last night, at least in the NBA, the Boston Celtics were a surprise. They're at the top of the Eastern Conference. And I saw that the LA Lakers were leading the Western Conference, which I actually thought that the Clippers would be at the top of the West at number 1. But I was not too surprised that the Knicks still suck at 1-7 last time I checked. And I've always been a Knicks fan, but man, the Knicks just can't get it together, man. They're the only team that would sign like 15 power forwards, 1 point guard, and no center. That's the New York Knicks for you. So hopefully they'll go ahead and sell the team to someone that has more of a vision for running a franchise, but that's yet to be seen. So we won't be surprised if they're 10-70 at the end of the season. So that's the Knicks for you. In legal news out in Texas, the Rodney Reed execution is being heavily protested out there in Texas. For those that have been following it, Rodney Reed has been a Black American man that's been on death row since 1999 after being convicted for allegedly raping and strangling a white woman who was married to or was engaged to a white cop named by the name of Officer Fennell at the time. If you followed that case, you know that there's a lot of people that said that Rodney Reed is innocent and that there was no physical evidence to connect him to any kind of strangulation or anything like that. But because the allegation is that he was in a consensual sexual relationship with a white woman out there in Texas at a time, in a small town where the interracial dating and mating between Black men and white women was very much taboo. Even just back in 1999, it was still taboo. And you have to remember, the year that Rodney Reed was convicted of that crime, the racial tension in that area of Texas was very high, because that was the same year that the case of James Beard, the Black man that was dragged from the back of a pickup by 2 or 3 white men, happened at that time in that same year. So that the timing between the Rodney Reed conviction and the James Beard, murder, when they dragged that Black man behind the pickup truck until he died, that all happened within a very close period of time, within 12 months of each other, 6 months, something like that. So there was always a lot of racial tensions out there in the late 90s. So Rodney Reed got caught up in that. And the theory goes from the Innocent Project that it was a situation where the prosecutors were just looking to pin it on somebody because it had been a year since the incident had happened, and they found the victim of this brutal crime. And a lot of people say that because he had had sex with her prior to that, that he was the one that did it. But then the victim's cousin, a white woman, because we're talking about a white family here, she says that the husband did it. So the cop, but he was a cop at the time, and she's come forward and been interviewed numerous times saying that the white fiance actually did it and was upset that a Black man was screwing his wife. So that whole thing is before Governor Abbott and the Board of Pardons right now. He's scheduled to be executed on November 20th. But with the evidence that's been presented with the Innocent Project and the potential for DNA evidence, new evidence to be introduced, they're asking for a stay of execution, and they're asking to be able to introduce this new DNA technology and evidence that has exonerated quite a few Black men over the last 20 years. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what Governor Abbott does, but the world is watching the state of Texas right now, and we will see if they do the right thing and stay. I don't know how you can be a human being and a true American that believes in justice and go forward with an execution like that, considering how much evidence has been presented by the organizations like the Innocent Project and other civil rights organizations. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't have that kind of blood on my hands as a politician or a governor. But like I said, man, we will see what happens next week. But as of now, he's still scheduled to be executed. But we'll go ahead and get into the topic now. So let me go ahead and do a screen share with you all so that you can get an idea of some background information on this case. Then I'll provide some commentary with my opinion on this case, because again, as with this whole Bottom Shelf Brad series, the evidence just keeps stacking up. I'm actually starting to believe that by the time we're at November going into December, I wouldn't be surprised if by March I've gotten to like 25 entries into the Bottom Shelf Brad files, because the more I keep looking into the news and paying more attention to it, I'm always finding these relationships and these very dysfunctional kind of relationships between American Black women and the bottom shelf brads of America. I mean, it's some straight up dysfunctional, mental illness type of mating going on with these people. And yet somehow the black man is always to be blamed. But in this case, that's where it gets very interesting because, as black men in this space have been saying for a long time, every time the black man tries to step in and offer protection, and of his wife, his daughter, a sister, a cousin, a friend, or whatever, or even a stranger in the street, it always blows up in the face of that black man. And in the case of Joe Morrissey, the convicted pedophile, newly elected Democratic state senator for Virginia, they will take the side of bottom shelf Brad and mailman over you as a black father, a black husband, brother, or even just a good Samaritan on the street trying to help. So I've been telling black men in this space to stand down, but you have to make that choice yourself. But this case, once you get some details on it, you're going to see why I say that it's time for black thinking men, at least, to stand down. I don't care what the other, the usual suspects do, because, another thing that stood out to me about this case was that, we talked about, the Jason Roger Pope situation, talked about numerous different cases related to these dysfunctional kind of relationships and the promotion of the mailman above the American black man in all things that they do. But the usual suspects being the black girl magic feminists, the Me Too misandrists, the black women first drones, the genocide warrior class, the white cucks, and the white male worshipers. I just kind of noticed that anytime these kind of conversations hit the news, because they don't never go national, but they are reported in the local news. And so this is not like a situation that the usual suspects did not know about. Because remember, he announced that he was running for this state Senate seat back in the winter of this year. So back in February, they already knew about this dysfunctional situation of a convicted pedophile actually marrying his victim. This shit is just so crazy. So I'll go ahead and get into a little bit of the details of it by reading this story. So this was a news report that came out from Fredericksburg.com back in February, like right when he announced it, but it was originally in the Washington Post. So when he announced that he was going to be running for this state Senate seat, this was a big deal in that area because that seat was held by an incumbent who was a black American female who had been in that position for a while. So that district is the 16th district out there near Richmond and Petersburg. And the thing about Petersburg is that it's a mostly black city, and he represents mostly black parts of Richmond. So he's going up against this representative who is a black American woman, and he's been convicted as a felon. He's been disbarred as a lawyer out there in Virginia, and it's because of his sexual predation on underage women. So I'll go ahead and read the case for you. So the title is Virginia's Political Circus Ready for Another Reign. So I want to bring up this picture. So this was a picture that was taken that year. Now, in this picture, you see these 4 biracial children. Now, Joe Morrissey, the white man that you see here, he was born September 23rd, 1957, and is currently 62 years old. So that's who you see right there. This black American female that you see here is a woman by the name of Myrna Pride. And she was born March 20th, 1996. She's currently 23 years old. But she was actually once a victim of that white man that you see on the screen. So what's so interesting is that, after he was released from prison, they got married after it was discovered that the entire time that he was in prison, she had been staying in contact with this man, Joe Morrissey, who was her former employer. That's one of the reasons why I mentioned the Me Too misandrist. So she was a 17-year-old intern at his law offices. And at the time, he was a 56-year-old man. So you had like this 39-year age difference. And in Virginia, the age of consent is 18 years old, period. So basically, the way that he was discovered, but let me just say that again. Let me just say that again. There's a 39-year age difference between the two of them. He was 56 years old at the time. She was 17 years old, and she was under his authority at his law firm. And I just can't get over the fact that Tarana Burke don't have anything to say about this. The Me Too Miss Andrews, they have nothing to say about this. And all these people that are saying that they're policing the pedophiles, you know what it is? They're not policing the pedophile. That's just something to talk about. Because when a case like this hits the news of a politician down there in Virginia that's known locally, it's dead silence, man. The white male worshipers, they give a rubber stamp to these kind of relationships because as long as it produces biracial children, they don't care if it's a 15-year-old girl with a 100-year-old man. As long as he's white, it's all right. But if it happened to be a black man who's 40 years old and he's with a 20-year-old woman, they would say we should turn the laws so that we can put them in prison. Not for white men. They get genetic diplomatic immunity because the white seed is so valued by the bottom shelf Brad Cope and the white male worshipers. They value that white seed. And I'm trying to really get this through to my free thinking brothers that you guys got to start understanding the truth of this situation. The white seed is more valued than the black seed because these women put white and the male race above their own race. I've actually surveyed enough black men now to understand that black men on average want black children. But I'm starting to believe that the evidence is showing more and more that on average, your American black woman, she wants that white womanhood. She wants that to become an artificial white woman. And because she cannot do that on her own, she believes that she could live vicariously through her mixed children if she could just get that white seed. So this whole thing is co-signed by the Sisterhood of Failure. They have nothing to say about this relationship. The fact that he's a convicted felon, the fact that he went to prison because of her, and the fact that she disobeyed her father. So the way that it came to the attention, let me just bring up this other picture because the picture right there is one thing, but boy, whew, I'm gonna speak on this picture. I want to let the audience see that picture right there. So this is a picture of Joe Morrissey, who is now 62 years old, dressed as Thomas Jefferson. And this is him with his 23-year-old wife that he's been having sex with since she was 16 or 17. And that he went to prison for after being charged with 3 felonies and 1 misdemeanor. So I'll go ahead and give you guys those charges that he was charged with. So basically, Myrna's sister had grown very suspicious at the time. That black woman that you see, her name is Myrna. And so she was working at Morrissey's law firm and she was spending a lot of time with him, outside of work. And you know how it is, like with your siblings, you see them texting and things like that. And somehow she was looking over her shoulder one day and she saw a picture of him in the phone. And so she snuck into the phone, found out that, her underage sister was texting this 56-year-old white man who was her boss. And again, Me Too. If anyone from Me Too or the Black Girl Magic Feminists are listening, where are you at on this type of thing? Why aren't you using this as an example of the kind of sexual predation that is done against young women? See, you guys don't have anything to say about it as long as it's a white man. As long as the dude doing it is white, it's okay. You only have an issue with it when it's black. And that's the hypocrisy of the black gynocracy. All of their laws apply to the black man and the black boy. But genetic diplomatic immunity is granted to anyone white, especially that white man. So, Myrna ended up reporting the story to her father. So Myrna has a black father. She's a black American woman. She's not biracial. And her father's name is Coleman Pride. So with the suspicions of the father and the sister, the father, instead of assaulting and possibly going to prison, because there was a power dynamic at play here. He was a lawyer. He was a sitting state legislature even back then in 2014. And so instead of like becoming violent, he thought this whole thing through. He used his logic and he called the cops. The cops came through. And just like in the Jason Roger Pope situation, let's not forget, in the Jason Roger Pope scandal, when the police came to get Jason Roger Pope, there were 2 underage black women at his place in his residence at that time. Yeah, let's not forget about that. Now, here we are. Case number 3, Bottom Shelf Brad Survival Series. Same situation. The father who was looking out for his daughter, who did everything right, called the police. The police saw that there was probable cause. They got the necessary warrant, and they came through to Joe Morrissey's residence, and she was right there because she wouldn't come home. The father was telling her to come home, but she wouldn't. And the police had to force this underage girl to leave the residence, and then they arrested Joe Morrissey. But again, like I said, he was an influential dude. You know, he wasn't just like some nobody white guy like Jason Roger Pope. He actually had clout. He was a lawyer and a legislator down there in Virginia. So eventually he was indicted by a grand jury on June 30th, 2014. So the grand jury had charged Joe Morrissey with a count of indecent liberties with a minor under Code of Virginia section 18.2-370. So that was a class 4 felony with 1 to 10 years in prison if convicted, and up to a $2,500 fine. They also charged him with a second count of possession and distribution of child pornography under section 18.2-374.1. And under that charge, he was looking at a class 6 felony of 5 to 20 years in prison, up to a $100,000 fine, depending on the nature and usage of the child pornography nudes. So in Virginia, if you have child pornography, the fine can differ and the charge can differ depending on the way that you use the photo. But the minimum was like 5 years and the max was 20 years on that charge. Then he got charged with a electronic solicitation of a minor. That's a class 4 felony, 1 to 10 years in prison, up to a $2,500 fine. And his last charge was contributing to the delinquency of a minor, a class 1 misdemeanor, up to 12 months in prison with a $2,500 fine. So, you know, with him being a lawyer and all, he was very well aware that if he went to trial, he was finished, because the nature of, you know, the climate at that time, the whole sexual assault thing was really building up around that time. And we ended up getting Me Too in 2017, but the soil had already been tilled, starting with, you know, Barack Obama and Joe Biden. They really had this campaign against men and this whole sexual assault and even just the allegation of sexual assault. So he knew that he was in trouble. So using his prestige, using his connections, and using his money, he was able to take a plea deal for the charge of contributing to a delinquency of a minor. And they ended up, he beat all those other charges. So with that plea deal, he ended up doing a 4-month sentence. Now, the story should have ended there, but that was just the beginning of the whole story. So he ends up, you know, the father, everyone is like, okay, we got our daughter back. This dude's in prison. Well, it didn't take long, but the entire 4 months that he was in there, the woman that was writing him, coming to visit him, was that woman that you see on the screen, his current wife, Myrna. So they had remained in contact. But what happened is when he got out and she was around the age of 19, he ended up getting her pregnant. And she had a child out of wedlock. And at the time, you know, Morrissey, he denied being the father. So people were like, damn, you know, so he just been convicted. He just got out of prison. All of a sudden, this 19-year-old woman that he was involved with a year prior, now she's pregnant with a child, and it came out biracial. So he denied it at first when the news came to talk to him. He denied it. No, it's not me. I'm not the father. I was not having sex with her. But then eventually, with the pressure and the father and the sister being on his back, he ended up doing a press conference admitting to being the father of this out of wedlock child. Now, remember, when that child was born in 2015, he was 58 years old and she was 19. But he had been fucking her since she was a teenager. You know what I'm saying? We don't know if it was 16 or 17. We just know that he was fucking her since she was a older teen. So that we do know. And the thing about this cat, he has at least 7 known children by different women. Some of them are white women. Some of them are black women. And then he has these children with his wife. So I'm going to be honest with you. When I read this story and I saw this little slave cosplay picture that he and his wife had put up, I'm like, I look into it to come to find out he was actually trying, Thomas Jefferson is a Virginian. And he's kind of like a state hero in Virginia, despite him being a pedophile, a known pedophile, having fathered numerous black children that he denied, and some of them he kept in slavery and sold in slavery. But that's a role model of Joe Morrissey. So he did his little cosplay with his wife, her as Sally Hemings, and him as Thomas Jefferson. And like I said, the dude has multiple kids by multiple women out there. So in a way, he's kind of like a white Pookie, to be honest with you. And that deals with the whole theory that I have that when these American white male worshipers choose, they're typically choosing the bottom quarter of white men, whatever puts them in the bottom quarter, whether it be looks, whether it be status, whether it be mental illness, whatever. You're finding more and more that the more attractive American black women are pulling from that bottom part of that dating pool, and they have no shame about it. So yeah, in this picture that you're looking at, that's Thomas Jefferson cosplay with Sally Hemings cosplay. And I mean, she's all for it. He's all for it. And it does make one start really thinking deeply, man. One of the myths that's been passed down to us in the current generation, living generations of black men, is that this idea that these black women were raped in slavery and all of this shit. Come on, man. Look, it's no denying that technically every black woman that was a slave in a relationship with a slave holder was raped, technically, because a slave cannot consent. That's a fact. Slaves cannot consent no matter what. But we have so much knowledge of relationships between free black women and actually slave masters and slaveholders at that time. So much evidence, and we're definitely gonna dig into that more and more. There's a lot of brothers that talk about these things, so I'm just one of at least a dozen black men that have really talked about this old relationship between these black women. But a case like this, for me, it just proves that a lot of lies have been told to us. A lot of this shit was voluntary in a non-technical sense. We can only claim that it was rape because slaves can't consent. That's the only thing we could say. But a lot of these women didn't even want to leave slavery. When slavery was over, they did not want to leave their white masters that they had children with and that they had these sexual liaisons with. They just didn't want to. It was the radical Republicans that had to force them and say, hey, man, you're free now. And she's like, I'm good. I like this situation of being a bed wench. So, we know that in Virginia, they have a big blackface slave cosplay culture down there. And we know this because it was just a year ago that the governor of Virginia, who was reelected, by the way, got caught up in a huge blackface scandal. And there's a lot of psychological things that go behind the blackface thing. When white men do blackface, we initially think that it's mockery. They're just trying to know they're not. It's envy. I keep telling you dudes, the black American man is the most alienated, most marginalized, and most envied man on the planet, probably in world history. So what happens is that these white dudes wish they had that melanin that we got. They wish they had it. So they do this blackface because in their psychotic, sociopathic minds, they believe that painting their face like a black man gives them the power that we have in our melanin, nature, that what nature gave us. So in some way, they believe that this cosplay puts them in a black man's skin for a moment. It's a very sick and psychotic mentality, but these are the ones that they choose. These white male worshipers don't care that they're dealing with psychotic men. They don't care because what's mostly valued is that white seed. They got to get that white seed. They got to help erase dark skin and kinky hair from the American gene pool. And I'm quite convinced that at the rate this thing is going and the power that the white dominant society has over the wombs of the American black women, that give it 10, 15 years, they're going to succeed at the rate that we're going right now. I'm almost 100% convinced of it. So one of the, the usual suspects have this very strange alliance with each other. The white male worshiper, the genocide warrior class, the black girl magic feminist, the Me Too misandrous, and the black women first drones, the white cucks. They have this strange alliance with each other. And the one that's looking on the outside looking in is the free thinking black man. We're on the outside looking in. But I say, look and do not enter. Look, observe, note, and go your own way. Save yourself, black man. That's what I say in this regards. But I thought this whole blackface thing with the governor and then seeing this newly elected state senator and knowing the trajectory of politicians, I mean, he got to be thinking, damn, I'm a convicted pedophile, statutory rapist, and the father went against me, the sister went against me. But guess who I keep leaving out? Y'all haven't heard me talk about the mother. The mother's role in here. Oh, yeah. You already know it. You know how I get out when it comes to the mother pimp. We found out about the big sister pimp when it came to Jason Roger Pope, and how a lot of these black women themselves are pimping these black girls to different men, including white men. But they're pimping them out to all men. But there's the accusation of a mother pimp in this situation. And brothers, it's just an allegation. But the father claims that the mother of Myrna Pride took some kind of payment to sell the daughter and give approval of the relationship to Mr. Morrissey, Joe Morrissey. So yeah, the father, Coleman Pride, who tried to protect his daughter, that's one of the rallying cries that you hear from the black misandrous a lot. They're always talking about black men don't build and protect. But it's funny that every time a black man, no matter his role and relations to said black woman, steps in and tries to protect the said woman and all her associates, and there's always that big sister pimp and the mother pimp in the background trying their hardest to defeat you and to make it difficult for you to do your job as a protector. So Coleman Pride did everything right, man. I mean, he got him convicted. He thought that it was over with, but it was just beginning. Because, Coleman Pride himself, he claims that somehow there was some kind of payment. And it's just an allegation. I can't prove it, but hey, he's the father. I believe him. The sister said it too. I believe her. So me looking at the case, I believe that the mother did take the payment because she's the only one that hasn't spoken out. So basically, based on what I read, the father and the sister don't deal with her. They disowned her. So they disowned Myrna because they said that she's like naive and she's in a deluded state and that, that white man magic got her under that spell. You hear black women talk about that black girl magic feminist thing or whatever. But I don't know, man. I think that the male man magic is got to be 1,000 times stronger because even the father who tried to protect his naive young daughter, she didn't care. She totally disrespected him. And that's where I'm going to kind of bring in T.I. and Lawrence Fishburne and the connection between, Coleman Pride, T.I.'s recent scandal, and Lawrence Fishburne. But I really just wanted you guys to get a good look at that picture, man. You just can't make this stuff up, man. It's 2019, and there's a slave play on Broadway right now that brings to life that Thomas Jefferson, Sally Hemings connection to Joe Morrissey and Myrna Pride in this spirit of this long-standing, very old alliance and tag team between the male man and the white male worshiper. They have a tag team that I think is so strong that no one could ever break that bond between the male man and the white male worshiper. And that's why I call it the cult of Bottom Shelf Brad. And I know there's so many black men, and I was one of them. It was the brothers in this space that opened my eyes to the truth And that made me start speaking out and sharing that truth with other brothers. Because you got guys like David Carroll, Brian Solange, Kid Organic, and BGS Ibmore, who have put out great, content really dealing with the psychological thing in regards to this relationship between the male man and the white male worshiper. So they've done a good job of really highlighting these cases, talking about the cases, and forcing you to reprogram yourself. Because what it is that so many of us American black men, we have been under the the brainwashing of the black gynocracy, and we have a software system inside of our mind that was built on that programming, because it's almost like it does something to the human mind to believe, and we have that forgiveness as humans for our mothers and our sisters. It's hard for a person, a human being, to believe that the nurturer, someone that was their mother that gave birth to them, could hate them. You know what I'm saying? That could disdain them and hold them in contempt. Someone that gave birth to you. And it's something that it takes a long time. I mean, I've been in this space over a year. I'm at around 60 months, but I've been deprogramming myself. And this is part of my deprogramming. That's why I speak on these things. And that's why I go more in depth about them. That's why I go into the background. That's why I talk about the laws and things like that, because I want to show you how these men, these male men, has genetic diplomatic immunity. Everything that you hear different people in the misandry field going against the black man applies 1,000 times to the male man. And I need you brothers out there to realize that there is a double standard that's so blatant that it's insulting to your intelligence to allow someone to tell you that they're being fair with you and that they care about you when they do their best to protect and to serve the interests of the same white dominant society they consistently complain about every single day. Every time it goes wrong, see what's going to happen. We already know the future for Myrna Pride. This man already has multiple children. This old ass man. This man is 62 years old, yo. 62 years old, and she's 23. This motherfucker be having amnesia or dementia in like 5-6 years, right? But that doesn't matter to her. So he probably got like 15, 20 concubines out there. But at some point, she will be running back to her black father, who tried to warn her not to continue this relationship after this man was released from prison and disbarred from the law and all that. Instead, she's acting as the loyal wife on his campaign trail. And that's why he was able to defeat that black woman down there in the 16th district representing Petersburg and the Richmond area, because she approved it. The black American women put him in power. Now, there you go. That was what stood out the most about this case. He easily defeated that black woman in his race, and he easily defeated his Republican opponent. He won 55% of the vote down there, and the majority of his voters were American black women. You know how the Democratic Party says that the backbone of the Democratic Party is the American black female voter? Well, over here we say that she's the bent over the couch. That's her, that vote. She's the bent over the couch vote. That's what's really going on. So when you hear the white male cuck Democrats say things like the black female is the backbone of the Democratic Party, what my black manospherian translator says to me is that getting bent over the couch voter. That's all it means. Getting bent over the couch voter. That's all I hear in my ears now. I don't hear anything else. And that's why so many of the black misandrists are upset. They're angry. They're frustrated because black men are not supposed to think. You're not supposed to read. You're not supposed to follow the news. You're not supposed to become politically savvy. You're not supposed to call it out when you do. When you become politically savvy, when you become successful, you are supposed to give your energy and resources to the gynocracy. You're supposed to use that in the interest of strengthening them and weakening you. You're supposed to help to keep the black boys inferior. You're not supposed to be giving this information back to brothers to think on for themselves. This is where the frustration that the white male worshiper has with this side of YouTube is. because we're not supposed to be using this information to free brothers. We're not supposed to be on the Nebuchadnezzar. We're supposed to be on some cipher tip. And that's why you have your black identity extremists, agents of chaos, all over the place in this sphere now. They're everywhere now, sowing the seeds of dissent and chaos every time I look up on a panel. But it ain't working. It's not working. We're actually getting stronger. We're becoming more polished, and we're thinking clearer than ever as we close 2019. And in that, I'm very proud of my free thinking brothers, because they keep being pursued on this witch hunt, this censorship, but we just keep banging and banging and banging, and you just opening more and more minds, and more brothers are coming to this space, and they're starting their own channels, they're starting their own blogs and websites. So this thing is going to explode next year. This is just the tip of the iceberg in 2019. But that's just so interesting to me, that here is a perfect example of another narrative easily refuted. Black men don't protect. Another lie constantly told to gaslight black men. So you have a situation where Coleman Pride did everything he could. The sister even joined in. That's a good black sister right there. She was trying to protect her sister. That black father was trying to protect that daughter. But according to the black father, again, allegations, he says the mother was in league with that old white man that became a pedophile and now is her son-in-law. I mean, the shit, and he's actually older than the father and the mother, from my understanding. They're like in their late 50s. He's in his early 60s. So this shit is just crazy down there in Virginia, which is a microcosm of America, and it's just being exposed to public, investigation. That's all that we have here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this screen down. I think I've given you guys most of what you need to hear in regards to that case, because I want to kind of talk. I want to segue to talking about T.I., but I'll just give you a little bit of what that article said. As if Virginia Democrats are not awash in enough drama, a scandal-tarred former state lawmaker who has earned the enmity of party leaders is plotting another political comeback. So this was back in February 2019. Joe Morrissey, who lost Richmond's 2016 mayoral race after serving as a state delegate, is exploring a primary challenge against State Senator Rosalind Dance, a fellow Democrat whose district includes a portion of Richmond and the surrounding suburbs. The folks are, I believe, wildly supportive, Morrissey at the time, 61, said in a phone interview, sounding like a candidate as he canvassed voters on Valentine's Day. I do not think it will be close. So listen to that. Let me say that again, what he said. He said, I do not think it will be close. Now, remember, this is a convicted, sexual predator. He's already been, disbarred from practicing law in the state of Virginia, and the greater white community has turned their backs on him. But guess what? In Americanda, if you're white, you're all right. So he was so confident in getting the white male worship vote, which was predominantly American black women, that he said, hey, I don't even think it will be close. And here's the crazy part. He was right. He easily beat his Republican candidate, and he took the primary by a large number over that black female. Because, and it's funny, I just heard a brother tell me the other day on another panel. He said that when it comes to that white man, the American black female will put that white man before even a white woman. So I was like, you really believe that? He was like, yeah, man, if it came down to a white male candidate, a white female, a black female candidate, Latino, that white man gets top billing, guaranteed vote. Hey, shout yourself out, Brian X. You was right on that one, because this is a perfect example of that. So it says Morrissey pleaded guilty in 2014 to contributing to the delinquency of a minor after prosecutors accused him of having sex with Myrna Warren, then a 17-year-old receptionist at his law firm. They later married and are raising 3 children of their own, plus a 4th from a relationship that Morrissey had with another woman. And he has some other kids too, with other women as well. If he runs, Morrissey would bring another load of political baggage to a party already bearing the weight of scandals engulfing Governor Ralph Northam, Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax, and Attorney General Mark Herring, each of whom have ignored demands that they resign. Northam is trying to recover from the emergence of a racist photo from his 1984 medical school yearbook and his admission that he wore blackface to dress as Michael Jackson for a dance contest when he was 25. Herring has acknowledged that he too wore blackface when he dressed as a rapper at a college party when he was 19. And Fairfax is pushing back allegations that he sexually assaulted 2 women in early 2000s. So the funny thing about this case to the audience is that Morrissey, the guy who was the convicted pedophile in this case, he was actually called on the governor Northam and Herring to resign, even after he done been accused, and convicted. That's how much arrogance and how much of a sociopath that he really is. But like I said, genetic diplomatic community is so strong within Americana that these white male worshipers don't care that about his history and thing. He's still white. That's all that matters to them. So he tried to get all of them resigned, but he had his own ulterior motives for that, because he figured that if he can get the governor Northam to resign, Herring, and the black dude Justin Fairfax, who is the lieutenant governor, then he would be able to use his leverage with the Black American Virginian women vote to actually move up even faster within the party. Because you heard him say it himself. I'm going to win easily. So if he could have used that Machiavellian approach to taking out Governor Northam and Herring and Fairfax, then that would have just easily meant that he would have got promoted up within his party as a legislator, because he already knew it didn't matter that he was a convicted pedophile. Because again, with the genetic diplomatic community, there is no such thing as a crime if you're a male man. If you're a male man and you're engaged in any kind of sexual relations, intimate relations with the white male worshiper, you are free from crime. Like, there is no such thing as rape. There is no such thing as giving HIV and AIDS to a black woman. There is no such thing as murder. There's no such thing as a crime because you're immune as her white savior. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that screen now so I can look at the comments before I jump into this conversation about, just give my thoughts on T.I. and the connection. But, sorry to everyone that I couldn't follow the chat, because like when I'm doing screen share, I just can't. So let's see, what you all been saying. Let's see. But this case is just very, it's another telling case of really where you black men stand in regards to the white male worshipers and the usual suspects. You're nothing. Your seed is worthless. Man, this chat is moving so fast, I can't even. Says, so the truth, as I know it says, King Sigma lifting the curtain again. What's behind it? I'll just sit in my seat and enjoy the show. Hey, man, the truth. We're going to keep doing it, man. Like, this is one of the greatest times for free-thinking black men in the history of the world. We've never had so much ability to destroy and dismantle all these false narratives and different forms of psychological warfare that have been used against black boys and black men. And we're just going to keep pounding. And for those that have put themselves in opposition to free-thinking black men, it's not going to get easier. It's only going to get worse, because we're only going to get stronger and stronger as more brothers archive this information, they track it, and they get, you add even more voices giving different, perspectives on the same topic. It's only going to get worse in 2020, because so much is at stake in 2020. So let's see. Turbattle says, remember how black women supposedly stopped Roy Moore from being elected? Yeah, I do remember that. And then they actually ended up blaming the black male voter when that whole thing happened down in Georgia with Abrams, and then I believe it was Alabama. So during those 2016 and 2018 elections, black men were getting a lot of blame for nothing. You can't blame someone for not joining in on something that doesn't benefit them. That's insane. That's like a rapist saying to his victim, you're guilty of me raping you because you won't consent to the rape. And it's funny because it's coming from the leftist authoritarians, and they don't see how we can use their own arguments against them. So you're going to blame the black man for voting his interest and voting against his victimization, and further pushing him into a more inferior status and returning him to like a Jim Crow inferior status. That's the kind of argument they make. So they always complaining about victim blaming, but when the victim is American black men, again, that's an exception to the rule. It's amazing. You black men should be shameful of yourself for not accepting the truth, even though the usual suspects continue to tell you where you stand in their eyes. You are a non-entity. You are a non-citizen. There are no rights that you have in regards to American society at large. And that's why I continuously tell you guys, your only crime as a black American man is breathing while black male. And that's harsh to tell you that. It's not something that I woke up and I was excited about when I started learning this stuff. But how long will you fight the truth for what it is? There's a certain kind of rage that comes with finding out that you're an invisible man. There's a certain kind of anger that comes with finding out that you are a non-entity. Even on a spiritual level, they don't even recognize you as a spiritual being either. But there's a sort of liberation that comes with knowing that you can do like Atlas and just simply shrug. That's all you got to do. As you gain this knowledge, lose the rage, lose the anger, and just shrug. Because this politician, Joe Morrissey, then you had Gentry, Crotch Burns, and Jason Roger Pope. They are liberating you. With each one of these entries into the Surviving Bottom Shelf Brad series, that's a chain that's being broken from around your mind. And no, you're not supposed to be excited about being a non-entity. No, you're not supposed to be excited that the black gynocracy is an artificial state put in place to destroy you and eliminate you from the gene pool and the social pool. But you're supposed to take it and be a problem solver instead of becoming, angry and destroying yourself within. Because we do have the proverb that says, if you hold on to the blade of a sword too long, you'll cut your own hand. So I'm not going to play that game. I'm using them to enrich my own mind. I'm using them to liberate my own mind. And I will always thank the brothers in this space that over the last 16 months have done that for me and that have given me my own voice, because that's what has happened. Listening to those brothers and seeing how much knowledge they had about this dynamic that I really didn't think too deeply about. To be honest with you, I was just always about getting mine. So as long as I was getting mine, I was cool. But the more and more I started to listen to brothers talk about this dynamic between black men and black women, the black man and the black child, the black woman and the black child, that's when my eyes, like the scales started to fall off my own eyes. And there was a period where I was very angry at my ignorance. But now that rage is gone. Now it's about logic, removing the emotion, and executing a plan to save yourself. That's all I can tell you. So let me see. Some of these other comments in the chat before I get on this TI topic. Chi-Town Session says, SYSBM, black man, 100, 100. Hey, I salute you. I'm all for it, man. We're at a point now, if you're still talking about Americanda and you're still talking about this Hotep communist state, that's you guys go do that yourself. Because I actually agree with Eugene Robinson that I've talked about before. I think that even if some kind of thing happened where we can make a deal tomorrow, this is all theoretical. Let's say we can make a deal tomorrow with the U.S. government. They say, hey, okay, Donald Trump said you guys built America. We got politicians saying you owed this. We're going to cut you a $17 trillion check. I think that another part of that deal should be that we should make everyone own up to their ideology. That should be part of the negotiations as well. If you claim that you're a Hotep communist, you have no say so. You're going to get this money, but you have to go to Sierra Leone and Liberia to build the American state. If you say that you're a person that like integration, you could stay here. If you're a person that say, well, I believe in a mixed economy and I just don't believe in integration, put them somewhere in a different, get them a state and put them there and get them their check. I want to see everyone live and be happy. But I'm not with the Hotep communist American fantasy, because what I see is that the woman that's been assigned to you, in order for you to have that, she would have to be replaced completely. So The brother Edward Anderson, he uses the term, I think he says 2/3 policy or something like that. Whereas with me, it's more like only 20% of the current American Black female population could be included in anything progressive and aspirational. So that's where I'm at on that. But, you know, every time I read one of these stories, it's very overwhelming. I mean, just to see, you know, the situation with Joe Morrissey, man, he's actually in a higher position today after being convicted for sexual predation than he was 5 years ago. Just look, let that shit sink in, man. He actually got promoted for being a sexual pedophile. Had a Black American man that was an upstanding, you know, member of the high status society had been convicted of sexual predation upon a white female teen. You mean to sit here and tell me you think that dude would be flying higher than he was when he was convicted? You gotta be insane. You gotta be insane if you think. And I'm talking about even from the Black females that claim that they vote and support the Democrats, right? Just let's switch it up. Let's look at two scenarios. So let's say that this was a Joey Morrissey. He was Black. And he had been a lawyer and had been a state rep. Was convicted of having a sexual affair with a teen white girl. First off, he would have never beat those 3 charges that he was charged with and been able to plead with a 4th lower charge. It would have never happened. He would have been facing 10 to 15 years in prison. Yes, he would have been disbarred the same way that Mayo Man Morrissey was, but he would have never been able to be seen in the state of Virginia again. They would have put restrictions on him like, you have to leave the state of Virginia. You have to register as a sexual predator. You can't, you know, he would have had every restriction possible, even after serving 10 or 15 years in prison. This is the hypocrisy. And you're going to tell me you think after he served his time that the American Black female voter was going to welcome him back to the Democratic Party like, oh, yeah, we behind you. Hell no. We don't even got to go into the example of what white Democrats would have done to him. Ain't no way that the white males and the white females that vote in the Democratic Party would allow a Black man convicted of similar charges and such social scandal to be the face of the Democratic Party. Joe Morrissey himself said, I'm the face of this party now. Let's get rid of Northam. Let's get rid of Fairfax. Let's get rid of them so I can move up in the party because I have the support of the American Black female vote, and they are the backbone bent over voters of this party. That's how arrogant he was. He said, I'm walking in the spirit of Thomas Jefferson. All of these Black females are Sally Hemings as far as I'm concerned. Your daughters, your mamas, your cousin, I run these bitches. I'm going to turn this whole courthouse into a hoe house with a bunch of black bunnies and white bunnies running around. That's what he said himself. Arrogance, a sociopath. And you black men continue to support your own subjugation? Something is seriously wrong with you dudes, man. Seriously wrong with you. And I would tell you to go see a therapist, but the therapists are under the control of the gynocentric state as well. I don't even know what to tell you brothers anymore, because you can't go see most of these therapists because they're training you to be a female anyway. So the only hope you have, and the only hope I have, is to free and liberate ourselves and create an entirely different social paradigm. Yes, that's what I mean. We have to destroy the current leadership in all the social institutions in order to get good health for ourselves. Because the whole American Psychological Association has been taken over by fourth wave misandry. So you know, if you're a masculine psychologist or doing anything that promotes a healthy relationship between men and women, like a Jordan Peterson type guy or a Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, those are the exceptions to the rule. And Dr. Frances Cress Welsing she's passed. She's left us. So Jordan Peterson, they're trying to bar him from being a psychologist because he refuses to bow down and bend the knee to the fourth wave misandry. So we are on our own. We are on an island now, man. So you better take in this black pill knowledge. You better take in this red pill knowledge. You better take in this critical thinking. You better take in this daily information that you're getting. And I'm not going to tell you what to do with it because I don't do that. All I do is share information with free thinking brothers and assume that you have 6 pounds between your ears and you can figure this shit out for yourself the way that I figured it out. I hated these brothers in this space when I heard this information the first couple weeks. It was too much. This can't be true. This myth of white womanhood. This can't be true. I was raised by black women. I grew up with black women. It's no way they can hold me in contempt. No, these American black women are not in league with the mailman. They're out there saying Black Lives Matters. They're out there saying that they're black love. There's no way this shit can be true, man. These dudes are coons. I was definitely in that same boat. This can't be true. But the more and more I dug into the facts, taking my emotions out of the equations, because I realized I was emotional, man. Those were my emotions speaking to me. That heart beating for my relatives, my heart beating for the American black women that I've met. But those were the exceptions, and those that were not the exceptions that were found were just showing me their two-facedness. So as you engage in the red pill and the black pill information in regards to your status as a black man in America, it's a bitter pill to swallow. And some brothers will never understand. Some will understand and destroy themselves with that understanding. And some brothers will be like Atlas shrugging. They'll say, damn, thank you, brothers, for opening my eyes. Now I can go and be happy for once. That's all I'm telling you to do. Go be happy, man. You don't owe anyone anything. No one owes you anything. And to me, that's a new paradigm for free thinking black men. You've been carrying the weight of black society on your shoulders while at the same time being treated like a greyhound on a dog track chasing after a fucking bone that you'll never catch. You ain't never going to catch that bone. Because if there will be an Americanda, it will be built by free thinking brothers with females from all throughout the world that they so choose them. And they will be falling into your frame, and you will not be falling into a existing artificial frame created by your open enemies. And I don't go after just the Mayo Man, because like I just told you, the Mayo Man, he's been working behind the scenes over the last 60 years. He don't have to do no fucking work no more to destroy you. He got the black girl magic feminists, the Me Too misandrists, the black women first drones, the white cooks, the white male worshipers, and the genocide warrior class doing all this fucking dirty work for him, bro. And of course, the Hotep communists, they do all the work for him. He don't got to do shit anymore. All he does is sit back, doing inventory every quarter to make sure everything is running smoothly with his business, and he ain't to be seen. He's somewhere off on a fucking island like Jeffrey Epstein, laying up with 12 and 13-year-old women from every nation in the world. Because again, the cult of bottom shelf Brad demands a tithe. He demands payment, and he usually takes his payment in underage women from everywhere on the planet. Jeffrey Epstein Island, where all those rich white elites and Jews were. Oh my God, the black book that he had and the amount of women he had, you dudes is out here fighting over 3s and 4s, being told to improve yourself to lower your standards instead of improving yourself to rate. The only reason to ever improve yourself is to raise your standards. Jeffrey Epstein, he out here got the prettiest young girls from every fucking nation represented on the planet. It wasn't just American women, Caribbean women. This dude had women coming in. He had young girls, underage women from Russia, girls coming in from the Philippines, Africa, Thailand, Brazil, all the women that you are excited to go see across the world. Jeffrey Epstein and his pedophile ring done ran through all those women by the time they get to you here in America. That's a bitter pill for you to swallow, but it's true. But it's an opportunity too. It's an opportunity for you to be a liberated black man, because once you know the truth, they can no longer keep that wool pulled over your eyes anymore. You're walking with that third eye. Even if they put out both of your eyes, that third eye is so open, it's so clear, you good. You see in the world, like when they remember in the Matrix, when Neo went blind, but he was able to see the Matrix in X-ray vision. It didn't change anything. They just took out his organic eyes, but that third eye, they couldn't touch it. The only way they could take that out is through nature and dementia or taking you out. So that's the greatest gift you can have, is the truth. Because once that third eye is open, they cannot close your eyes. They can cut off your arms, cut off your feet, but that third eye is still open. They can even cut out your tongue, because that's always been one of the things that tyrants have done to free-thinking men. That's been done all throughout history. One of the things they've done so that you can't tell your story, so you can't liberate others, to cut out your fucking tongue. They put out your eyes. They tried that and then found out that putting out your eyes didn't stop you from having kinetic strength. It didn't stop you from being able to move or talk or educate and even see in that third eye. So then they started cutting out tongue. So they said that we can't take your third eye out. We will make sure that you cannot talk, you cannot write, and you cannot run. And that's why they hate this sector of Black YouTube, because we're the most dangerous Black men that have ever lived in this country, ever. The free-thinking Black man in 2019 is the most dangerous crop of Black men that's ever walked in this space, ever, because of what we can do with this technology and with the information of the Malcolm X's, with the information of the Marcus Garveys, with the information of the Booker T. Washingtons, the W. Du Boises. We can take their knowledge and amplify that shit 1,000 times now, because we can do edutainment now. We can make the great things they said fun to talk about. That's what they fear. They fear us making this conversation so interesting and so provocative and so real that it will attract even the females. They'll say the light is shining so brightly that I cannot resist it. I hate them. I hate them, but the light is shining so bright, I must go to it, because I am a passive vessel and I'm dark and I gotta go to the light. That's what we have. Brothers is opening that third eye. They're finding that melanin power now, and they're becoming like walking fucking Superman. That's why they want to keep you downtrodden in just one area of human activity, talking about sex all day, because in that way they can control you. But when brothers start saying, damn, I don't even got to really put in that much work to dominate the sex arena, that comes naturally. God gave you that. He gave you charm and charisma. He gave you kinetic, natural strength and all. That's easy. But when Black men start looking at the other areas of human activity, like, man, I need to start understanding how they put together this U.S. Constitution. I need to start understanding how these business enterprises are created, run, dismantled, regulated. Once brothers start having those kind of conversations, now everybody is up in arms. Now you got articles in the newspapers talking about Black men need to start voting with Black women. What's wrong with Black men? What's wrong with Black men not showing up to the polls? You start hearing these kind of talks. And the mailman is sitting back like the Wizard of Oz the whole time, doing his little puppeteer game. Because he's saying, damn, I got a nice game going. But you know what's happening? The free-thinking man is Toto. Toto was a fucking pet, but he was the smartest one on the fucking yellow brick road, man. He was a little fucking puppy. He was the one that pulled the curtain back, said, you guys are here talking about a fucking white savior and a God, and the whole time it's this little decrepit Joey Morrissey looking motherfucker behind the scenes with a bunch of gadgets and widgets manipulating you all. So that's what I'm saying. It's time for you to free yourself, man, because no one else is coming to free you. I'm telling you that right now. All this little Hotep communist talk, all this Black woman first talk is all rhetoric, man. Because the moment that a person, even within their own camp, gets an opportunity, believe you, they're out of there. They're throwing up EBM. They're saying SYSBM. So you'll notice that the more impoverished are the ones that talk that rhetoric. But the moment that they see an opportunity not to be impoverished, to increase their clout, they're out of there. That's why the only group that can improve the conditions for the Black child are free-thinking Black men, because we're the only ones that are willing to synthesize all the information, not just one area of information, but we're willing to look at all these different ideas. We're willing to look at all these different sources and use critical thinking to decide what is useful and what needs to be discarded. And for me, the Democratic Party needs to be discarded in its current manifestation. It has no purpose outside of the destruction of the Black family. Don't let them fool you. It's not about the destruction of the white family and all American families. It's about the destruction of the Black family and the erasure of Black Americans from this country. Do not let them fool you. I've looked into it, and the white male has said, You white feminists, we're about to get you back in order. It's time to get you back in order. So they're checking them hard. So it's us black Americans that are left out on the island as usual again. But you got a guy like this cat, Joey Morrissey. He gets to be elected state senator. He gets more props today than he did 5 years ago when he was convicted sex offender. And guess who gets shitted on? The father and the black sister. They're the ones that got shitted on. They're the ones that got attacked by the white male worshippers. Like, let that girl bone who she want to bone. So when you got a 63-year-old man with a 23-year-old woman and that man is white, oh, it's okay. Leave him alone. He has genetic diplomatic immunity. The moment that T.I. steps up to the plate, playing the role of stepfather, that's what's so interesting about the T.I. scandal and this whole backlash against him just doing what a father should do. He's the stepfather in that scenario. So he tells his doctor, he says, you know, this is my daughter. She's carrying my crest. She's under my authority. She has the family shield of my name. I'm using my resources to raise this stepdaughter. She's coming in for a physical. You make sure that her womb is healthy. Her womb is clean because her womb represents the future of my family. Her womb represents the future of my name. She's carrying my name. So you check that hymen because I want to know when she loses that hymen, because that means that I've failed as a father, as a stepfather, to impart my ideology onto this young girl. And as long as she's under my authority and my guardianship, I'm going to teach her to respect her womb. I'm going to teach her to respect her body and her health. I'm going to make her floss. I'm going to make her brush her teeth. I'm going to teach her to love herself. And I'm going to teach her that your womb is politics. It's not just pleasure. Your womb represents the future of my family. In fact, the sacrifices that I've made, because you're under our family shield, you're going to do better than I did. You're not going to be out here in the streets getting ran through by white male men on college campuses like Malia Obama. You're not going to do me the way that Montana Fishburne did Lawrence Fishburne, becoming a porn star, becoming a street prostitute, becoming a stripper before the age of 30, while she is the daughter of one of the most decorated thespians in film history, especially as a black man, Lawrence Fishburne. You're not going to shame our crest. You're not going to disrespect this family shield. I'm going to teach you to value your womb because this family values your womb. We don't care who you fucking. We care why you're fucking. I want to teach you to value yourself and to make you understand what sex is and what sex is not. If you're going to have sex, you make sure you do it in the most healthiest way. Don't join these statistical ranks of the 50% of American black women with herpes. Don't join the rising tide of black American with HIV and AIDS. I don't want that for you, because T.I., as a Grammy Award winning actor, he has ran through 1,000 thoughts. He's experienced these women on a personal level to know their psychology. He's talked to them about how they became whores and prostitutes. So he's using that knowledge imparted to him by the mother pimps, the big sister pimps, and the street whores themselves to say to his daughter, hey, I don't want this for you. You're not even my biological daughter, but you represent a role model to my biological daughter. So I have to invest in you, because if I don't invest in you as your stepfather, since I took on this responsibility, you're going to set a bad example for my younger daughter. So I have to make you better than me and your mother, because we had flaws and we didn't have the advantages that you have. So I'm going to give you the power to use those advantages to go on and do something great, to be a woman with class and productivity, competency, the kind of woman that men fight to be next to, not because of your vagina, but because your feminine energy in your vagina. But I'm going to teach you to place the highest price on your vagina because you respect yourself. That's what T.I. was telling that girl. But you notice the usual suspects, they turn it into some perverted shit, as they always do. They turned it into something perverted, as they always do. They don't got nothing to say about Jason Roger Pope. They don't got nothing to say about Gentry Crotch Burns. They don't got anything to say about your state senator of Virginia, Joey Morrissey. And this all is happening at the same time while they're attacking T.I. So T.I. placing a higher value on his stepdaughter's womb as a representative of his name is some kind of perversion. But Joey Morrissey, statutory raping his subordinate black American secretary and then fucking her from the time she was 16 or 17 and then marrying her and then impregnating her with multiple kids at the age of 62 You're going to sit here and tell me that's not a perversion? But guess what? Again, back to the whole thing. Genetic diplomatic immunity. The usual suspects honor that shit like they honor the Bible. The only thing that has more value than the black pastor in that black church is the immunity given to the male man when it comes to getting that white seed and validation. They value nothing on earth higher than that Bible and that black church thing than that. That's their God that they're protecting right there. And I'm saying some of you black men, you are guilty as well. You are guilty as well because you stood by and voted for Joey Morrissey as well. So let's not act like y'all going to hide out. It wasn't as many of you that voted as the American black women, but some of you black men out there disrespected Coleman Pride, the father of Myrna Pride, by going out there and voting for that Mayo man. And he's spitting y'all faces and let you know, you niggas are so dumb. I'm so confident that they'll elect me. I'm going to win by a landslide. That's what he said. He didn't have no shame and he had no fear. I'm a convicted sexual predator. I have a harem of, white, brown, and yellow concubines. I'm disbarred. Doesn't matter. I'm going to actually upgrade now. I'm going to elevate off of my conviction. In fact, not only am I going to get elected, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to do 60 Minutes. I'm going to use a negative and turn it into a profitable positive. Because when I'm as a male man, forgiveness is built in to my subordinates in the cult of bottom shelf Brad. There is a mechanism, as Calvin Candy said in Django, when he was talking about the brain of a black slave and a black person. He said that it was something in your brain, something in your programming that makes you inferior to me. So Joey Morrissey, being from the same kind of lineage as Thomas Jefferson, being in that spirit of Thomas Jefferson and Calvin Candy, he said that I know your black brain, your black pea brain so well that it, no matter what crime I commit, no matter what injustice I do upon you, you are always programmed to come back to me and forgive me and to love me. And that's what this whole Joey Morrissey case is about. It's about genetic diplomatic immunity. In exchange for that white seed, Coleman Pride, the father of Myrna Pride, is saying that the mother pimp took a deal with this sexual predator to help him run for U.S. Senator one day, Governor of Virginia one day. So they're all in on it. And that's the real scandal here, is the role that black folks themselves continue to play in their own subjugation. So for all of you that's out there attacking T.I., T.I. is, for all his failings, and I ain't no fan of no celebrities. I don't fuck with celebrities. But when I hear that a black man, no matter if he's a celebrity, non-celebrity, poor, rich, middle class, English speaker, not English speaker, saying to his daughter, you need to value yourself as a woman. You need to value your womb. I'm all for that, no matter who the person is. Because Coleman Pride tried to protect his daughter from the Mayo man, but the whole of the black society down there in his area of Virginia went against him and his black daughter, the other one, who actually was trying to protect their sister. So I don't want to hear no more about this black men don't protect from the usual suspects, because the usual suspects will not talk about these cases that you have different brothers in this space that highlight damn near on a weekly basis now. Almost on a weekly basis, brothers are putting out this information, but the usual suspects are never nowhere to be seen when these conversations are had, because they have nothing to say, because they were always the problem. They will continue to be the problem. T.I. is not the problem. Lawrence Fishburne is not the problem. The problem is the usual suspects. They are enemies of black men, and they are black misandrists. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And I appreciate you all coming through. I will try to provide some links in the pinned post regarding this Joey Morrissey case, some background information. But again, as I said before, the black man, we are the most alienated, the most marginalized, and the most envied men in the world. And when we decide to stop looking for someone to put that crown on our head and we crown ourselves, then we are walking in the spirit of greatness and excellence, because the true excellent people have never waited for someone to crown them, have never waited for someone to give them an opportunity. The true kings create opportunities for themselves and they crown themselves, and they stand with their sword and shield and say, I will not be moved. So with that, you all have a great weekend, and we will chop it up next time. Thanks for joining me, and I dearly, dearly appreciate your support. I'm sorry I was not able to get to the comments, but next time I will try to do less screen share and read more of your comments to interact with you all. So with that said, peace, and I will talk to you all next time.
Yeah.